Before dawn, April 19, 1775. The meeting house on Lexington Green is a dark block against the sky. Frost whitens the grass. A bell tolls slow, insistent, its iron note traveling farther than any order. Men emerge from doorways with muskets held at a careful slant, hats pulled low, coats collaring their throats. There's a smell of damp earth and lamp oil. Horses snort in the lane, tether ropes twitching. In the east, a seam of pale light begins to pull the night apart. Captain John Parker, his breath showing in the cold, counts shapes rather than faces. He is not a romantic figure, just a working man with a soldier's stoop and lungs that have never quite recovered from war. A courier has brought the warning, regulars are on the road. Perhaps 500, perhaps more. The town's militia gathers into a thin line, 70 or so farmers, wheelwrights, fathers with sons. They are here because word travels faster than hoofbeats through a country that has learned to keep secrets. Across the fields, the first red flashes move like embers in the dark. Drums, quiet but methodical. An officer's voice cutting the air, front, by companies. The regulars are close now. You can hear their gear, the steady clatter of bayonets, the sigh of leather slings, the dry rustle of red wool. A rank of polished muskets appears at the lane's turn, brass catching the first light. Captain Parker tells his men words later remembered and repeated: stand your ground. Don't fire unless fired upon. No one breathes. Every hand knows the weight of a trigger. Every eye is rigid on the line across the road, on the bayonets, on the powdered hair under hats that seem too snug for morning. Then, somewhere, no one can agree from where, comes a single shot. The world breaks open. Lexington and Concord. The first day of the American War for Independence. How a march meant to disarm a province turned into a running battle that changed history, and how a country, not yet a country, decided its future at gunfire distance. The road to Lexington begins not in Massachusetts but in world-spanning war. The 7 Years' War ends in 1763 with Britain triumphant and deeply in debt. The empire casts its eye over its colonies, prosperous, far-flung, and, in London's view, undertaxed. Acts follow like dominoes: the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Duties. Each measure seems administrative in Parliament, but in the towns where paper is stamped and molasses is seized, they land as something closer to insult. Massachusetts becomes a pressure vessel. Boston, its busiest port, becomes an argument with sails. Red-coated regiments march its streets, harbor cranes swing under watch. In 1770, a frightened moment of night noise and taunting ends in gunfire on King Street, the Boston Massacre, and 5 dead. The city learns how fast a mob can become a memory. Then, in 1773, Parliament tries to rescue the East India Company by letting it sell directly to the colonies, dodging middlemen. To many Bostonians, cheaper tea looks like a trap, an implied acceptance of Parliament's right to tax. Under the quiet coordination of merchants and artisans, men in disguise board the ships and send chests cracking into the dark water. The harbor rolls brown, then black again. London replies with the coercive acts. Boston's port is closed. Town meetings are restricted. The governor gains power at the colonists' expense. The colony's charter, its old promise with the crown, is tugged loose at the corners. Massachusetts responds by building another government in the shadows. Country towns form committees of correspondence. The Massachusetts Provincial Congress convenes without royal permission. Militiamen drill. The word minute attaches itself to them, Minutemen, because they promise to be ready in the time it takes a bell to sound and a family door to open. Meanwhile, General Thomas Gage, commander of British forces in North America and now governor of Massachusetts, tries to hold a threadbare peace. He believes most people want quiet. He also believes, correctly, that the countryside is slowly arming itself. Powder is the pulse of any militia. Gage starts to look for ways to squeeze that pulse. Seizures of powder are not new. Months earlier, the powder alarm had convulsed the province when British troops quietly removed stores from a magazine outside Boston. Rumors that the regulars had fired on crowds brought thousands of armed men onto the roads in a single day. The countryside proved it could assemble at a word. After that, every move is watched. Intelligence becomes the colony's second economy. A network of writers, church sextons, printers, and physicians shares small facts across parish lines with the speed of gossip and the discipline of soldiers. Among them is a silversmith named Paul Revere, who knows the water lanes as well as the roads, who can carve a message into metal, paper, or memory with equal skill. When the provincial Congress stores cannon, powder, and shot inland at places like Concord, 15 to 20 miles from Boston, they place those supplies not in open barns but in the folds of community, hidden in sheds behind parsonages, buried near farmhouses, concealed at mills. By mid-April 1775, London's patience has thinned. If Gage cannot keep the peace, he is told, he must act to prevent open rebellion. Orders pulse across the Atlantic with the awkward timing of sail and wind. What arrives is more endorsement than detail. The broad directive is clear enough: close the fist before the hand opens fully. Quietly seize or destroy the stores at Concord. Avoid bloodshed if possible. Do not inflame what can still be damped down. The countryside, of course, knows something is coming. And Boston, crowded with rumor and redcoats, is a drum that cannot help but beat. On the afternoon of April 18, General Gage's staff begins to move with the stiffness of people trying not to look hurried. Boats are readied near the foot of Boston Common to ferry troops across the Charles River. Grenadiers and light infantry, chosen for their size and speed, receive orders to assemble with minimal baggage. The plan seems direct: a night march, a sunrise seizure, and a return before the province has fully realized what is gone. Lieutenant Colonel Francis Smith will command the column. Major John Pitcairn will lead the advance light infantry. There is the question of arrests. Two prominent Patriot leaders, John Hancock and Samuel Adams, are in Lexington. Some British officers speak of capturing them, but what reaches Smith's written orders is focused on Concord's military supplies. The intelligence network on the other side, though, hears both possibilities. That's enough to turn a march into a potential decapitation strike. In the North End, Paul Revere meets with Dr. Joseph Warren, who has become the nerve center of Patriot intelligence in Boston. Revere does not wait for dawn. The warning plan, painstakingly conceived, is set in motion. Friends will signal the route the British take out of town with lanterns from the steeple of Christ Church, the Old North. 1 if by land, 2 if by water. It is a simple code for a complex geography. If the regulars march the long land route out of Boston Neck, 1 lantern; if they cross the Charles by boat and march from Cambridge, 2. The signal is not for men across the river, they will already be riding, but as a contingency for those in the city and for any eyes that can turn their glances into action. As Revere arranges his own departure, he will cross the Charles to Charlestown and take a borrowed horse from there. Another rider, William Dawes, heads out through Boston Neck over the land bridge, the slower route through British checkpoints. The redundancy is deliberate. Systems that must not fail are doubled. Behind the Common, oars dip without a sound. Red-coated soldiers climb down into boats with their firelocks held high. The river carries them across under a sliver moon. Somewhere upriver, a sexton and a churchwarden climb rickety steps in a dark tower. 2 lanterns glow into the night for less than a minute. It is enough. Revere lands in Charlestown, mounts, and starts to move across the countryside like a needle pulling a thread. He does not roar, he wakes. He does not cry havoc, he knocks at doors and asks for captains. In towns with names that will become more famous because of this night, Medford, Monotony, candles spring to light in windows as if a brush has painted them there. Dawes follows by the lower road, steady and patient, threading a different set of rooms and thresholds. When they meet in Lexington near midnight, Hancock and Adams are urged to take precautions. The riders press on. Samuel Prescott, a young physician heading home to Concord, joins them near midnight. He knows the lanes like a map you can read with your feet. A British patrol ambushes the riders on the road past Lexington. Dawes turns back after a crash in the dark when his horse throws him. Revere is detained, briefly questioned, escorted, before being released without his horse. Prescott, cutting his mount into the woods, leaps a low stone wall and disappears, reappearing on the far side with the patrol's curses dying behind him. He rides to Concord and spreads the alarm. Doors open and stay open. Just before sunrise, Major Pitcairn's advance light infantry reaches Lexington Green. The town is smaller than maps make it look. the Green is an ordinary village common where children play, cattle graze, and militia drills happen after church on paler days. Captain Parker's men are in a line, not blocking the road but visible. The regulars, professional in movement and coolness, swing into formation and level their loaded muskets. Officers ride forward and order the militia to disperse. Parker tells his men to go home. The line wavers into clumps that begin to peel away. Then someone, again, the mystery at the center of this day, fires a shot. It could be a nervous militiaman, a misfire, a gun from a window, a warning from a spectator, a British soldier jolting his trigger. The single crack is answer enough. A volley roars from the regulars. Smoke slaps across the green like a curtain. Men fall: Ebenezer Monroe, Jonas Parker, Jonathan Harrington, names that would have remained the names of private griefs if not for this moment. 8 colonists die at Lexington, 9 more are wounded. A British soldier is hit as well in the confusion of the smoke. It is a small battle by any later measure, but to the families gathered in doorways, it is unthinkable. The regulars form and march on, leaving blood on the meetinghouse steps and startled silence in their wake. The shock of Lexington is not singular, it is communicative. It travels down lanes and across fields, through taverns and over stone walls. It reaches men already strapping powder horns, women laying out bandages, boys running errands with a gravity beyond their years. Concord, 9 miles further west, becomes the morning's destination not only for the British column but for dozens of militia companies converging from all points of the compass. Concord's center looks placid in the early sun. Shops are shuttered, horses are restless. The British light infantry detach to secure the town's bridges while the main body begins to search for the rumored stores. Many of the most dangerous items, powder and cannon, have been hidden or moved to outlying farms. At Colonel James Barrett's farm, a mile or so from the center, men have been carrying barrels through the night to clear houses and creeks. The British search skillfully, but they arrive a half step behind what's already gone or buried. What they do find, they destroy. Carriage wheels are chopped and burned. Flour casks are staved. Pikes are smashed. A small fire is set to burn captured gun carriages near the meetinghouse. The smoke climbs. From the ridge beyond the river, it looks like a town torched. On that ridge gather companies from Concord and nearby towns Acton, Lincoln, Bedford, under officers whose names are ordinary and will soon be inscribed on memorials. They have watched as British light infantry secured the North Bridge over the Concord River with stacked arms and patrols. They have heard about Lexington. They see smoke rising from their town. The men on the ridge argue quickly, then organize more quietly. Isaac Davis of Acton, a captain whose men have been drilling with live powder all winter, volunteers to lead the advance. He runs a hand over the barrel of his flintlock to wipe off the dew. They approach the bridge in a thin line with the calm of people who know they are about to step through something they cannot step back out of. Major John Buttrick of Concord calls his men to hold their fire until fired upon. As the provincials walk, the British light infantry withdraw slightly to the bridge's far end. A shot rings out, again, sharp and untraceable. Then a British volley cracks. Captain Davis staggers and drops, shot through the heart. Private Abner Hosmer falls beside him. Buttrick's voice cuts across the river's quiet, "Fire, fellow soldiers, for God's sake, fire." The first volley from the provincial line sends smoke in a straight sheet. 3 British soldiers go down. The British line breaks, then reforms, then starts back toward town under pressure, leaving the bridge. The provincials, astonished that their organized return fire has worked, pause, then hold the bridge. It is a small turn in a small space. But there, on a wooden bridge over a cold river, the pattern flips, subjects firing on the king's soldiers in organized ranks and then standing their ground. Ralph Waldo Emerson will later call this "the shot heard round the world," writing those words for a poem in 1837 when a monument is dedicated on this very spot. He will give the morning its phrase and, in doing so, give the young nation a line to tuck into memory like a folded note. The British column begins its retreat east around midday. They have marched through the night and morning, fought in 2 towns, and now face a countryside that seems to be multiplying men behind every fence. The road back to Boston is a thread pulled through a rough cloth of stone walls, orchards, and woodlets, perfect ground for small unit fighting, for men who know every bend and briar. You've been watching Timeline History Vault. If this episode brought the past vividly into view, there's more on the way, more days when ordinary choices met extraordinary moments, and history changed its course at human scale. Kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe for the next episode.